S.H.Figuarts The Amazing Spiderman was released on the 24th of June as a premium Bandai web exclusive and retails for 7,700 yen or roughly $55 at the current conversion rate. Obviously, that price does vary depending on where you buy it from. Big Bad Toy Store still has Andrew Spiderman on pre-order for about $80 before shipping and will ship out in August. But because this is a premium Bandai Japan web exclusive and wasn't available on the premium Bandai US site, your usual import retailers like Hobbylink Japan and AmiAmi won't be carrying this release. So this is technically the revised version of the original intended release of The Amazing Spider-Man from Figuarts, the first and intended version of course being the exact same figure, just with the Andrew Garfield unmasked head. That was removed midway through pre-orders due to licensing issues, I'm sure. It wasn't really explained, but the unmasked head sculpt itself was a decent representation of the actor and an accessory that would have definitely made this release feel more complete. Nevertheless, this is still an amazing figure on its own, pun intended, and probably one of my favorite movie Spider-Man figures I've ever owned. It's not perfect. There are a couple of missing things from this release that just seem a little strange to me, and I'm not talking about the Andrew Garfield maskless head either. But overall, and you can argue this till the cows come home, but to me, the proportions, the build, the sculpt, the details, everything works as a Garfield Spider-Man. Could the torso be a little shorter? Could the legs be a little longer? Is the head a little on the small side? I've heard it all, and they're probably all very valid critiques, but I'm not an expert on Andrew Garfield's anatomy, nor do I care all too much about it being 100% correct. I've seen the movie a couple of times, and I know what Garfield generally looks like in the suit, and to me, this is more or less accurate. I think Tamashii have done a great job in portraying a taller, slimmer, still somewhat athletic, and almost borderline lanky Spider-Man. It's a clear difference to the Tobey Maguire release, and that's what I really enjoy and appreciate about these releases. Again, are they 100% accurate to their real-life actor counterparts? Probably not, but it's pretty close, and it's reflected very well, not only in the costume design, but also the proportions and sculpt work. Speaking of sculpt work, there is a ton of detail on Garfield's suit, from the intricate grid pattern to the sculpted webbing all over his body. They even sculpted in the web shooters, and it would have been nice to get a bit of paint detail in there, but still, it's very cool, and I'm really happy that they did sculpt in that particular detail. I love the raised spider logos on the front and the back here. Just look at how gorgeous they look in that beautiful red metallic paint. The spider legs also extend into the torso far enough so you don't get too much of a break when you have Spider-Man in crouching poses. I think the head sculpt is spot on and really captures the specific head shape of Garfield Spider-Man's suit. The eyes are large and prominent, raised black eye borders, and pearly white lenses, even more so than Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. All your raised webbing lines are painted a nice black, but what really stands out is the absolutely beautiful metallic red paint they've used. It's a deep red that kind of has this reflective sheen to it, depending on the lighting, which gives off this really cool shadowy effect. Not really sure how to explain it in words, but it's something that you just have to have in hand to fully appreciate. I love the contrast between the blues, which is a nice matte dark navy blue, molded in blue plastic. The blues aren't painted. And as detailed as this figure is, just like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, it doesn't seem too busy. It's not an overload of details, and when you take a step back and admire it from arm's reach, everything blends in nicely. However, as I mentioned, something that is missing, you don't get any sculpted work on Garfield's feet. Something that is, I guess, a running trend with most Spider-Man figures from the SHF line. They've painted the soles of the feet black, and you can see it on the side here, but no details on the underside. No biggie, but just something to note in case you were wondering. As for quality control, for my copy at least, nothing seems to be out of the ordinary. I did have a few overly tight joints with my Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, but Garfield is pretty smooth criminal so far. There were a couple of joints that needed a little breaking into, but overall, nothing too tight, nothing too loose. Everything feels just right. Paintwork is also pretty good, so no qualms with Garfield, at least for my copy anyway. Good luck with yours, and if you encounter anything with your copy, let us know in the comments. Alright, so let's take a look at the articulation, and essentially we are basically looking at a very similar, almost same, I guess, engineering style of figure as the Tobey Maguire figure. You can see that, you know, all the cuts are in the same places, all the joints are, you know, basically the same. The only difference, of course, is that, you know, the sculpt work and all the pieces are different. So, looking at Garfield Spider-Man, he looks up really, really well, which is fantastic. You know, his iconic opening scene, you'll have no problem pulling that off. Fantastic joint there in the neck. So he doesn't look down as much. You only get about that much with just the neck and the head. Obviously you can use the torso to bring it down a little bit more, but that's as far as you can go. You do get very nice side-to-side tilt, necessary for a probably the most expressive Spider-Man or portrayal of Spider-Man. And of course you do get side-to-side rotation. For shoulders, Garfield Spider-Man does have butterfly joints. They don't go as far into the chest as I would like it to, but you can still get your double-handed web swinging poses there. This is what it looks like at the back. You can hit those T-poses and then some, a bit further than 90 degrees. 360 rotation at the shoulders, bicep swivel, and you also get a swivel there at the elbow as well, so you can use either of those joints, the one that connects to the shoulder or the one that connects to the elbows. Although if you do use the joint at the elbow, it does break up that design there, the red design there. And speaking of the red webbing design, what I like about this figure, and it has more to do with the actual design, the costume design, than the actual engineering, but with Tobey Maguire Spider-Man's design, because he has more red on his forearm, they didn't give him red joints, or they didn't split the joint into red and blue, so you are stuck with this blue joint in the middle. Whereas with Garfield Spider-Man, because we get more blue than red, it looks a lot more natural. There is no breakup with the red and the blue, which is great. And moving on to the wrists, again, really love that they sculpted in the web shooters, and you do get, you know, the outlet where the web comes out from his hand, sculpted into the hands as well, which is a beautiful little detail. Really glad that they did that. You do get your swivels and your hinges at the wrist as well. And what I do like about this Spider-Man figure more than the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man is that the wrist joints are a little better hidden than the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, which is one of my complaints about that figure. It's not a big deal, but those small little details add up, and I really appreciate that. So looking at the torso, and you would think that because Garfield Spider-Man has that longer ab section here, that his torso ab crunch, you wouldn't get as much range, but look at that. Fantastic. I would say for me, because we do get that higher head tilt going up, it's a more natural 4-point crouch, where I can get Garfield Spider-Man in the more natural 4-point crouch. This is what it looks like at the back, so you do get some gappage there, especially here at the bottom. They have tried to kind of fill in that gap there at the lower back, And again, it does kind of break up the Spider-Man logo, the spider logo. Man, that's such a beautiful logo. Love that design. The metallic paint just looks so good. But I mean, you know, to get that amount of ab crunch, I really don't mind. So moving on, we do get swivel there at the upper torso cut, and you do get a little bit of swivel there at the lower waist, but most of your movement is going to be at the upper torso. You do get left and right tilt. So overall, really good range of movement there at the torso. Garfield Spider-Man does the side splits really well. You might not be a fan of the crotch design, but it does get 180 back and forward. We do get upper thigh swivel. Double knees, and he can kick his own butt. Look at that. Fantastic. Speaking of double knees, I forgot double elbows. Double knees and double elbows. Look at that. We get a swivel at the foot. No boot cut. The feet go down really well. Really happy about that. And very far up as well. Your typical toe hinge. And of course, some very good ankle pivot tilt. So all in all, this is one very, very articulated Spider-Man figure. I would say even more so than the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man figure. I don't know, it just feels, I guess, more natural when I pose this. It feels a little bit easier to get him in those, I guess, more difficult Spider-Man poses. But yeah, I just have a lot of fun posing this guy. I know you guys will as well. Yeah, just a really, really poseable, really fun figure to handle. Now for some reason, we get all these really nicely painted, reflective, shiny red Spider-Man hands, but no fists. I guess Garfield doesn't punch? Or Tamashii just forgot to include some basic fists with this release? Anyway, if you want to get Garfield to punch something, you'll have to make do with these web-grabbing hands, I guess, which work, but still no fists. Moving on, we get a pair of relaxed hands, a set of open palm hands, a set of wall-crawling hands, 2 thwipping hands, and a pair of finger-pointing hands. We also get your standard short, mid-length, and long web lines, the 2 short and mid-length ones to go over the wrists for some web shooting action, and the long web line for web swinging. Tobey Maguire was my movie Spider-Man growing up, so I definitely have more of a nostalgic attachment to that portrayal of Spider-Man. But if we're talking just suit and design alone, I do prefer Garfield's look and his overall more slender build. Again, I think Tamashii did a great job in portraying that in figure form, and though I skipped the Final Battle Tom Holland release, all 3 of these releases have their own distinct look and design, which is how they should be. As a release itself, I do feel Garfield Spider-Man is a little lacking without the unmasked head. I'll probably have to try and find a third-party one, get a talented customizer to paint it up for me. Tobey Maguire Spider-Man definitely feels like the better overall package, but figure to figure, you can't go wrong with either. Garfield poses extremely well, even with that longer torso, and those who really enjoyed Garfield's extremely expressive portrayal of Spider-Man, you'll have no problems pulling all of those Garfield-esque nuances. My first instinct when I got this out of the package was to go over the scene where Gwen shows up just before the final battle between Electro and Green Goblin. You can pull off all of those poses with this figure, so even without the unmasked head and the fists, so strange, that's got to be worth something, right? I don't have the Marvel Legends versions to compare this to, nor do I feel the need to pick it up, as good as it looks. It's about $200 here in Japan, so yeah, that's just not going to happen. And like I mentioned, I skipped the Final Battle Tom Holland release too, not because I'm not a fan of Tom Holland Spider-Man, but I was just hoping and waiting for a more classic looking Spider-Man suit for Tom. And lo and behold, we now have an S.H.Figuarts Final Swing Spider-Man in a very classic red and blue suit. And for me, that's it. These guys will be my definitive movie Spider-Man. I honestly don't see myself needing anything else from any other company, not even Mafex. I'm sure we will eventually get all 3 of these Spider-Man figures from Mafex in, say, the next 5 years or so. But that's a very long time, and these 2, with the addition and anticipation of the Final Swing Spider-Man from Figuarts, will do the job just fine. And that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the review. I'm sorry I don't have the most relevant size comparisons, but hopefully you still get a good idea of what this figure is all about. Still a ton of reviews to come. This is a big month, and I still have in the works Figuarts Kid Sasuke, Mafex Scarlet Spider, SHF Power from Chainsaw Man, the model kit Chainsaw Man, and of course, the big one for me, Superhero Broly. But yeah, hope to see you all back for those. And as always, yoroshiku.